driver applied the brakes, but it was too late.
"Cinders and ashes!"
cried Thomas.
"We're stuck!"
And they were. Long. He didn't see the broken rail until it was too late. He dangled dangerously above the water. "Look out!" cried Fergus, and he rushed forward and bumped Bill and Ben out of the way. His driver jumped to safety as the rocks began to fall, but Fergus was covered in rocks right up to his funnel. Knocked Edward right off the track. Cranky had been watching. "You useless little engines are always in the way." Poor Edward. His wheels did not like the mud. They scooted, they skated, they slid, they slipped. "I'm stuck," he groaned. Bertie revved his engine, but his wheels spun round and round. He couldn't budge. Then there was trouble. The tall funnel of the old barge crashed through a pipe. James was sure he'd get covered in sludge, but he didn't. "My whistle is clogged again. Watch out, James." Dust went everywhere. "I did warn you." Duck had stopped at the crossing at the bottom of the hill. Arthur's driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. Squashed fruit flew everywhere. Arthur was upset. His spotless record was ruined. But he was so busy watching the windmill sails that he forgot to look where he was going. All the flour was damaged and the miller was upset. That stormy night, the old windmill was struck by lightning. But there was trouble ahead. Trees had fallen across the line. Donald and Douglas stopped just in time. Then suddenly there was a loud crash. The brake van had been hit by a landslide and come off the rails. They were stuck. His driver applied the brakes. "Is there a problem, Mr. Oliver?" "Yes, there is." "That could have been a little smoother." Oliver felt awful. Thomas steamed as fast as he could along the line. But there was trouble ahead. Some faulty points sent his trucks one way, and Thomas onto the old pier rail. The trucks were delighted. "He's fallen in the water." Luckily, Thomas wasn't hurt and the fish truck stayed on the tracks. Elephant Park loomed ahead. Duncan's driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. The statue flew through the air and landed in the lake. Luckily, nobody was hurt. Later, Diesel was being careless. "Not like that," snapped Fergus. "Do it right." "Don't interfere," sneered Diesel. Bulgy swerved, the hens woke up, the passengers panicked, and Bulgy's driver lost control. The hens were frightened. They flapped, they squawked. "Stop!" cried Bulgy's passengers. "We want to get off." The passengers were covered in feathers and broken eggs. They were very cross. And it came down right in front of Skarloey. There's the Fat Controller.
My hat is ruined.
Cried Lady Hat. So is mine, said the Fat Controller. Further down his line, a colourful banner was strung across the bridge. Then, as Gordon steamed across the bridge, it came loose and wrapped around his firebox. He couldn't see the line ahead. Gordon tried to whoosh the banner off, but the banner wouldn't budge. I can't see, he whistled loudly to his driver. Stop! Trevor the traction engine was chugging slowly along with his load of apples for the children's apple bob. Trevor heard a whistle. He was going as fast as he could, but it wasn't fast enough. The apples were all smashed. She chuffed onto the icy road. Suddenly, she was on a steep hill. Her driver applied the brakes. Elizabeth slid out of control into a deep snowdrift. Poor Elizabeth. Thomas raced into the yard. Percy was coming the other way. Thomas bumped straight into Percy and the bunting flew up in the air. Percy's trucks came off the track, and so did Thomas. You've spilt my bunting, moaned Percy. Percy saw Bertie the bus. He took another big puff and blew. Bertie skidded all over the road. Percy! He cried crossly. Trevor the traction engine was taking food to the farm animals. With snow on the ground, they couldn't find any grass to eat. Percy took his biggest puff of all and blew. Trevor was so surprised his trailer bumped into a pile of logs. A log fell off and rolled down the hill. Snow stuck to the log. It turned into a snowball. The snowball got bigger and bigger. Percy was enjoying himself until he saw the snowball. Oh no! Cried Percy. Luckily, no one was hurt, but his driver was cross. But Diesel was soon up to his old tricks. First, he shunted Thomas under the hopper. Cinders and ashes, spluttered Thomas. Soon Diesel was showing off. I'm the fastest engine in the world, he boasted. Look at me go. Suddenly, Diesel's engine coughed. Then it started to splutter. Black, smelly smoke billowed from his exhaust. I feel sick, wailed Diesel. Mavis started billowing smoke too. So do I, she groaned. The quarry manager was upset. It's the new fuel, he cried. Water must have leaked into the tanks. Soon, all the other diesels had broken down. Harry, Bert, even Salty had ground right through the station and into a siding. Everyone watched as he puffed into a big pile of snow. Yuck! Coughed Gordon. Luckily, no one was hurt.
That afternoon, Thomas and Percy arrived at the quarry. But as the stone was loaded onto the trucks, a big cloud of stone whooshed down and landed right on top of Thomas. Yuck! Coughed Thomas. The engines tried to find the sunniest spot in the coal yard. So James backed up. Suddenly he bumped into a truck. The truck rolled into a lever. Then there was a whooshing sound. Oh no! James puffed. Coal poured out everywhere. It poured onto the tracks and all over Gordon, James and Emily. They weren't gleaming and shiny anymore. Just then, Gordon blew to clean his funnel. Coal dust shot into the air. It covered the Fat Controller and the Railway Inspector.
Sorry.
Thomas was ready to go. But the shunters hadn't released the brakes on the trucks. Thomas pulled as hard as he could, but the trucks wouldn't move. I have to hurry, puffed Thomas. He heaved, he huffed, and he puffed, and at last, the coupling broke. Thomas shot forward. Cocoa powder flew everywhere. Now I'll never get to take the children. Thomas braked as hard as he could, but the fish trucks were too heavy.